Ayesha lived in a small town where dreams felt bigger than the streets she walked on. She was young, ambitious, and carried a fire in her eyes that her modest home could never contain. Her parents had given her everything they could, but life had not been kind to them. Her father ran a tiny shop that barely earned enough to keep the household afloat, while her mother stitched clothes to add a little extra income. Every night, when Ayesha saw the exhaustion on her parents' faces, she promised herself that one day she would change everything. She wanted to go abroad, America, the land of opportunity. For her, it wasn't just about herself. It was about lifting her entire family out of struggle and hardship. She had graduated from college, her English was decent, and she was determined. But the biggest obstacle was money. Traveling abroad, securing a visa, and surviving in a foreign land, all of it required wealth she didn't have. Still, dreams were all she had, and she clung to them tightly. One afternoon, while talking to her closest friend Sana, the conversation took a serious turn. "Ayesha," Sana said, "you're smarter than most people in this town. If anyone deserves to go abroad and build a new life, it's you, but you'll have to find a way." Those words struck deep into Ayesha's heart. She already knew it, but hearing someone else affirm it ignited her even more. She began spending hours researching visas, scholarships, work permits, anything that could be a doorway into her dream life. Late nights turned into long hours on the computer, scrolling through stories of people who had left everything behind and built a new life in America. During one of those late-night scrolls, she came across a young man named Samir. He lived in America, worked a stable job, and seemed approachable. Their first conversations were casual, just greetings and small talk. But as days passed, their chats grew longer, more personal. Ayesha found him confident, friendly, and easy to talk to. One evening, almost without realizing it, she shared her dream with him. She confessed her longing to move abroad and the hopelessness of her financial situation. Samir paused for a moment before replying, "If you really want to come here, maybe I can help you." Those words lit up her world like a spark in the darkness. Was this destiny? Was this her chance? Yet, beneath the glow of hope, a small shadow of doubt lingered. Could she trust him? Would he really help, or was this just empty talk? Days turned into weeks, and their friendship grew stronger. Samir told her stories of life in America, the struggles, the opportunities, the loneliness, and the possibilities. Ayesha listened wide-eyed, imagining herself in those streets, working hard, sending money back home and building the future she always dreamed of. One night, as Ayesha lay awake watching her parents sleep, her heart grew heavy. She saw the lines of exhaustion etched on their faces, the sacrifices they had silently made all their lives. Tears welled up in her eyes. They had given her everything. Now it was her turn. She whispered a prayer into the stillness. "God, please show me a way." And then, Samir's words came back to her. One evening, after a long pause, he said softly, "There's a shortcut." Her brows furrowed. "Shortcut? What do you mean?" "If you marry me," he said carefully, "you could get a green card. It would make things much easier." The world seemed to stop spinning for Ayesha. Marriage? To someone she had never even met in person? Her mind flooded with questions. Was this the only way? Would she be sacrificing her life for a dream? That night she couldn't sleep. She lay staring at the ceiling, torn between her parents' struggles, her burning ambition, and the frightening risk of trusting a man she barely knew. Every logical voice in her mind screamed caution, yet her heart whispered that maybe, just maybe, this was the path she had been praying for. By morning, she still hadn't made a decision. But deep inside, she knew one thing. Her life had reached a turning point. A door had opened, and stepping through it could change everything forever. Her breath caught as she told herself, "If I really want this dream, I have to be brave enough to take the risk." Ayesha's world had shifted ever since Samir suggested marriage as a way out. She hadn't given him an answer yet, but the idea lingered in her mind, growing louder with every passing day. She tried to push it away, convincing herself that there had to be another path. But reality was cruel. Applications for visas and scholarships came with endless rejections or expenses she couldn't afford. Every option seemed like a locked door, and Samir's proposal remained the only door left ajar. Samir never pressured her. He spoke gently, always reminding her that the choice was hers alone. "I just want to help you," he said one evening over a video call. "I know it's not simple, but think about it. You'll have your dream, and I'll have companionship. We can figure out the rest." His words comforted her, but they also confused her. Was this marriage truly about helping her, or was there something more? She found herself wondering if there was genuine affection behind his steady voice and kind eyes. The thought of love scared her as much as it tempted her. Days later, she finally opened up to Sana about Samir's offer. Sana gasped, her eyes wide. "Ayesha, do you even know this man well enough? Marriage isn't a joke. What if it's just a trap?" Ayesha lowered her gaze. "I know. But what if it's the only way? My family needs me. I can't watch them suffer anymore." Sana placed a hand on her shoulder. "I understand. But promise me, if you do this, you'll keep your heart guarded." That night, after long hours of restless thinking, Ayesha called Samir. Her voice trembled as she said, "If I say yes, what would this mean for us?" There was silence on the other end, followed by a sigh. "It means we'll have to trust each other," he replied. "At first it'll be practical. Papers, legalities, the green card. But maybe, over time, it can be more. I don't expect you to fall in love instantly, Ayesha. I just ask for honesty." Her chest tightened. It was not the romantic confession she had dreamt of, but there was sincerity in his words. And perhaps, sincerity was all she needed for now. Within weeks, arrangements were made. Ayesha's parents were hesitant at first, but when Samir visited through a video call, he spoke respectfully, assuring them he would take care of their daughter. Desperation often silences doubt, and soon enough, they gave their blessing, though Ayesha could see the hidden worry in their eyes. The marriage was simple, a legal formality. Ayesha signed papers with hands that trembled, caught between fear and hope. She wasn't dressed in a grand bridal gown, nor surrounded by celebrations. It was quiet, almost mechanical, but inside her, storms of emotions raged. After the paperwork, reality sank in quickly. Samir guided her through the visa process, the forms, the interviews. He was patient, walking her through every step. Slowly, she began to see a different side of him. Beneath his practicality, there was kindness. He checked in on her family, sent small financial help when he could, and reminded Ayesha to stay strong during the long waiting period. One evening, as they spoke online, Ayesha asked, "Why are you really doing this for me?" Samir smiled faintly. "Because I see myself in you. I came here with nothing too. I know what it feels like to dream of more while being trapped by circumstances. Helping you feels like helping the old me." Her heart softened. For the first time, she felt a bond forming that wasn't just about papers and visas. Months passed. Finally, the day came when Ayesha held her ticket to a new world. Her visa was approved. Her parents wept with pride and fear as they hugged her goodbye at the airport. "Make us proud, Beta," her father whispered, his voice cracking. Her mother clung to her, as though letting go meant losing her forever. As the plane soared into the sky, Ayesha pressed her forehead against the window. Her heart ached, but beneath the ache was excitement. She was leaving behind the only life she had ever known, stepping into an uncertain future. When she landed, Samir was there, waiting with a nervous smile. Meeting him in person for the first time was strange. He was taller than she expected, his eyes warmer. He greeted her politely, carrying her bags, asking about her comfort. Yet, there was an awkwardness too. Two people bound together by a decision larger than either of them fully understood. That night, as Ayesha lay in the guest room of Samir's apartment, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, she whispered to herself, "This is it. My new beginning, my new life." But deep inside, she couldn't ignore the truth. This wasn't love, not yet. It was a deal, a fragile arrangement built on necessity. And while it opened the door to her dreams, it also carried a shadow she couldn't quite name. The foundation of their relationship had been set. But would it grow into love, or collapse under the weight of hidden expectations? Ayesha didn't know yet. All she knew was that she had taken the leap, and there was no turning back. Life in America was nothing like the glossy images Ayesha had imagined while scrolling through websites back home. The first few weeks felt overwhelming. The streets were wider, the buildings taller, and the people always in a rush. She had expected excitement, but what greeted her was loneliness. Samir tried to help her settle in. He introduced her to the basics: how to get a bus pass, where to shop for groceries, how to manage her paperwork. But while he left for work each morning, Ayesha spent her days staring out the apartment window, feeling like a stranger in her own life. At night, when she video called her parents, she put on a brave smile. "I'm fine," she said. "Everything is good here." But the truth was far from it. Her parents' proud, hopeful faces made her hide the emptiness gnawing inside her. As weeks turned into months, the cultural shock deepened. She missed the warmth of neighbors back home, the chatter of the streets, the smell of her mother's cooking. Here, people barely made eye contact. Everyone seemed to live in their own bubble. Money was tight too. Samir's income covered rent and bills, but not much more. Ayesha longed to contribute, but finding a job was harder than she thought. Her qualifications weren't recognized easily. Her accent drew stares, and rejection letters piled up in her email inbox. The tension slowly seeped into her relationship with Samir. He remained kind, but he was often exhausted from work. She, in turn, grew restless from being dependent. One evening, she snapped, "I didn't come here to sit useless all day. I want to work, to stand on my own feet." Samir rubbed his temples. "I know, Ayesha, but it takes time here. I went through the same struggle. You have to be patient." Her voice quivered with frustration. "Patience won't pay bills, Samir. I feel trapped." The silence that followed was heavy. Both of them knew this wasn't just about work. It was about the cracks forming in their fragile relationship. Slowly, arguments became frequent. Sometimes about money, sometimes about chores, and sometimes about nothing at all. They were two people bound by a deal, trying to behave like partners, but struggling to find balance. One cold winter night, as snow fell outside, Ayesha sat on the couch, hugging her knees. She whispered, "Was this really the right choice? Did I trade one kind of prison for another?" But she refused to give up. Determined, she started volunteering at a local community center. It wasn't paid work, but it gave her purpose. She helped immigrants like herself, translating, guiding them with paperwork. For the first time since arriving, she felt useful. Samir noticed the change in her. Her eyes had a spark again. He smiled at her across the dinner table one night and said, "I'm proud of you." Those words melted some of the ice between them. For a while, things improved. Ayesha began building connections, meeting women who shared similar struggles. She realized she wasn't alone. Every immigrant carried stories of sacrifice and silent battles. Yet the shadow of reality never fully disappeared. Samir sometimes grew distant, spending late nights at work, avoiding deeper conversations. Ayesha wondered if he regretted marrying her. Did he truly see her as a partner, or just as someone he had helped out of pity? One evening, after another long day, Samir came home visibly upset. He barely touched his dinner. Ayesha asked gently, "What's wrong?" He sighed. Work pressure, finances, and maybe us. Her heart sank. "What do you mean, us?" Samir looked at her with tired eyes. "This arrangement. I know it's supposed to be practical, but sometimes I feel like we're just pretending to be something we're not." His honesty stung, but she couldn't deny the truth. They were living under the same roof, yet their hearts were miles apart. That night, as Ayesha lay awake, the weight of it all pressed down on her chest. The dreams she had once chased so passionately now felt complicated, messy, and uncertain. She had thought America would give her everything, but it had also taken away her peace. Still, somewhere deep inside, she refused to let the struggles break her. She whispered to herself, "I came this far. I won't stop now. No matter how hard it gets, I'll find my place here. I'll prove to myself that I didn't come in vain." But little did she know, the toughest storm was still ahead. The deal that had brought her here, the very foundation of her new life, was about to crack wide open. And when the truth came out, nothing between her and Samir would ever be the same again. The storm came on an ordinary Tuesday. Ayesha was folding laundry when she noticed Samir's phone buzzing on the table. Normally, she wouldn't touch it, but the name flashing on the screen caught her eye. Maya. The call ended quickly, but curiosity gnawed at her. That evening, when Samir returned, she asked casually, "Who's Maya?" He froze for a fraction of a second before replying, "A colleague. We're working on a project." His tone was calm, too calm. Ayesha wanted to believe him, but the hesitation in his eyes lingered in her mind. Over the next few weeks, she noticed changes. He came home later than usual, his shirts faintly scented with perfume that wasn't hers. His laughter returned, but not with her. He carried it in his pockets, saving it for someone else. One night, she followed him. Her heart pounded with every step as she trailed his car to a quiet cafe downtown. Through the window, she saw him sitting across from a woman, Maya. They leaned close, their conversation intimate, their smiles soft. Ayesha felt her chest tighten, as if the air had been stolen from her lungs. She didn't confront him that night. Instead, she walked aimlessly through the streets until her legs ached. Tears blurred her vision, but she refused to collapse. She kept whispering to herself, "Stay strong, stay strong." When she finally returned home, Samir was already there, pretending nothing had happened. The sight of him broke her resolve. "How long?" she asked quietly. He looked up, startled. "What do you mean?" "Don't lie, Samir. How long have you been with her?" Silence stretched between them like a blade. At last he spoke, his voice low. "It wasn't supposed to happen." Her hands trembled. "Then why did it?" He rubbed his forehead, weary. "Because I was lonely too. Because we rushed into this. Because maybe we weren't meant for each other." The word stabbed deeper than any betrayal. She had left her world behind, crossed oceans, endured loneliness, all for a marriage that was now unraveling thread by thread. Ayesha turned away, her tears silent but fierce. "You should have told me before breaking me like this." Samir reached for her hand, but she pulled away. For the first time, she saw him not as a husband, not even as a partner, but as a stranger who had shared her home, her bed, and her dreams. The following days passed in a blur. Ayesha still volunteered at the community center, but her smile no longer reached her eyes. She couldn't confide in anyone, not even the women who trusted her with their own struggles. At night, she sat on the balcony, staring at the endless city lights, wondering if any of them held a path for her. One evening, Samir came home early, his face pale. "Ayesha, I ended it with Maya," he said quickly, as if the confession could fix everything. She looked at him, searching for sincerity. "Do you expect me to thank you? To forgive you as if nothing happened?" He swallowed hard. "I want to make this work. I still care about you." Her laugh was bitter. "Care isn't love, Samir, and I deserve more than scraps of affection." His silence confirmed what she already knew. Their foundation had crumbled. That night, Ayesha made a decision. She would no longer let her life be defined by a broken marriage or a failed bargain. She would rise not because of Samir but in spite of him. The betrayal that once threatened to destroy her would become the fire that forged her strength. As she lay in bed, staring into the dark, she whispered a vow to herself. "This is not my ending. This is where I begin." The morning after her decision felt different. The air was sharper, clearer, as if the city itself had shed a layer of dust. Ayesha brewed her tea slowly, savoring the aroma. For the first time in months, she wasn't waiting for Samir to come home, wasn't wondering if he was telling the truth. She was thinking about herself, and it felt strangely liberating. She began with small steps. She registered for evening classes at the local college, courses in design and entrepreneurship. The idea had always lingered in her heart, but she had pushed it aside, thinking her future depended on someone else. Now she wanted to build her own. The first night in class, she sat among strangers, nervous but determined. As the professor spoke about creativity and risk, she felt something awaken in her. Hope. At the community center, Ayesha poured herself even more into helping others. She organized workshops for immigrant women on job hunting, language learning, and self-confidence. People started looking up to her, not as a fragile newcomer, but as a leader who understood their battles. When one young girl whispered, "You give me courage," Ayesha's eyes filled with tears. Perhaps her pain had a purpose after all. Meanwhile, Samir drifted further into the background. He tried sometimes to reclaim what they had lost, cooking her favorite dishes, offering to drive her to class, leaving notes on the counter. But the gulf between them was too wide. Ayesha responded politely, without malice but without warmth. Her heart had already stepped beyond him. One evening, during a community event, she was invited to speak on stage. She hesitated at first, terrified of public speaking, but the crowd's encouragement pushed her forward. Her voice trembled in the beginning, but as she shared her journey, the loneliness, the betrayal, the rediscovery of her strength, it grew steadier. The hall was silent, every eye fixed on her. When she ended with the words, "Sometimes life takes everything from you so you can learn to build it all over again. Stronger, braver, freer," the audience erupted in applause. That night, she felt something shift inside her. She was no longer just surviving. She was inspiring. Months passed, and her confidence grew. Her designs caught attention, and with the help of mentors from her classes, she launched a small online business. Orders trickled in, then poured. Ayesha spent late nights sketching patterns, packaging items, and answering customers. Each sale was a reminder. She could create. She could succeed. She could stand on her own. Samir watched quietly, perhaps regretful, perhaps simply aware that her world no longer revolved around him. One evening, he finally spoke the truth. "You don't need me anymore." Ayesha looked at him, her expression calm. "I never needed you, Samir. I just believed I did." There was no anger in her tone, no bitterness, just clarity. Eventually, they parted ways. The divorce papers were signed without drama, only quiet acceptance. Samir moved out, and Ayesha remained in the apartment, filling it with plants, books, and laughter from new friends. On the anniversary of her arrival in this country, Ayesha stood on the balcony, the same spot where she had once cried alone, staring at the endless city lights. But tonight she wasn't lost. She was found. She thought of the girl who had stepped off the plane, wide-eyed and uncertain, and she whispered to her younger self, "You made it. You're stronger than you ever imagined." Her phone buzzed with a message from one of her customers. "Your work inspires me. Thank you." Another from the community center. "We'd love for you to lead a seminar next month." And yet another from a close friend. "Proud of you." Ayesha smiled. She no longer needed validation from a marriage or a man. She had found something deeper, her own voice, her own path. And as she gazed at the glowing skyline, she felt a certainty she had never felt before. This was not just a survival story, this was the beginning of a legacy.